Okay, so now is where we're going to work on the intonation part of our practice in this DVD. So we're going to work on a G major scale. We're going to play a two octave G major scale. And I'm going to really help you with your finger patterns. Make sure you have these right, because that will really help you with your intonation. Make sure you've got really solid left hand technique. You know exactly where your notes are. So let's just talk it through real quick. So when we're on the G string, we're going to play open G, and then we're going to have our first finger, and then there's going to be a big space between our first and second finger. That's called a whole step. And then there's going to be a half step between our second and third finger. So they're right next to each other, they're going to be touching, and then there's going to be a whole step to our fourth finger. That's another thing. We are going to play no open strings when we play scales, except for the G string, because we have to play that one open. And then the rest of the notes we're going to play with our fourth finger instead of open strings. And the reason for that is because when you get into harder scales with a lot of sharps or flats, sometimes you can't play any open strings. You have to finger all the notes. So it's good to get into that habit and learn the finger patterns, so that later when you play more difficult scales it won't be hard for you. So we're just going to start right out with that. So we did the G string pattern, it looks like this. Now we're going to do the D string pattern. It looks exactly the same. It's going to be the same exact pattern. Whole step between first and second finger, and then whole step between third and fourth finger. Now when we get on the A string, that's where things change. We're going to have our first finger, and then the half step is going to be between our first and second fingers. So they're going to be close together. And the whole step will be between our second and third finger. So it's changed from this, it changes to this. Okay, so be aware of that, because we're going to play a C natural on the A string, which will be right next to our first finger, which is a B. Okay, so the whole step will be between second and third finger, and third and fourth finger. And this is going to be the exact same pattern on the E string as well. We're going to have the half step between our first and second finger. So now let's talk about the notes. Scales are a good way to learn how to read notes, because it's pretty self-explanatory. You know, we have our G string, open G, and the next note is A, and then B, and then C, and then D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C natural, D, E, F sharp, and then G. So that's pretty easy to figure out. Sometimes people also ask me, how do I know that it's in G major? Like, how do I know the etude that we played is in G major? That just takes practice of learning your key signatures. You have to memorize what they look like. And in G major, we have one sharp, which is F sharp. So if you see a piece of music with one sharp, an F sharp, then you know that it's probably in G major. It can also be in E minor, but we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. So most times it's going to be either G major or E minor. So let's play through this scale. Beginners, I'm probably going to give you assignments where you play through it with staccato bowing. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go through it with staccato bowing, because we did a lot of that in with the etude work. In the scale, I'd like you to use it to practice your bowing as well, but for the time I spend on this DVD, we're going to talk a little more about intonation and left hand techniques. So I'm just going to rely on you to practice your bowing on your own with the scale or through the etude. So let's just do some nice day-to-shape bowing like this, and we'll go through the scale together, starting on the G string. Ready, go. String and pull the tone out with your fourth fingers. To make sure they're in tune, you can tune it with your open strings. For example, the fourth finger on the G string. That's a D, so it should sound exactly like your D string. So you can tune your fourth finger, make sure it sounds, and that way you can make sure your fourth finger is in tune. Same thing on the D string. Should sound just like your A string. And the neat thing is, you can especially see it if you play fourth finger on G. If you have it in tune, you should see your D string, actually see it vibrating. You really bow into that string and it's in tune, you'll see your D string vibrating. That's pretty cool. And that'll help you know you're in tune as well. So, we played through the scale. Now we're going to play through thirds in G major, which is thirds are fun to play, but they're also really good practice because we run into a lot of thirds in our etudes and different music. So what thirds are is you're just doing a finger pattern. You're going from first finger to third finger, and then you do second finger to fourth finger, and third finger to first finger. So it's just that pattern. It goes over and over again, and you get some string crossing while you're doing it. Just a really good thing to practice. So, let's go through our thirds together, using the same bowing as we did when we played the scale. Ready, go. So I forgot to mention, make sure you use your fourth finger in the thirds as well, and that'll be a little bit more difficult because you're doing string crossing, but that's a good thing to practice.